Welcome back to the Lemon Factor. I'm Chad, and today we're going to fix our problem with our stock steering wheel. Is it really a problem? No, not really. It's just I'm not happy with it. And as I stated in a past video of mine, it's one of my biggest pet peeves is the steering wheel on the ND Mazda Miata. I think it's too thin. I think it doesn't have enough contouring. The diameter, it's okay. It could do to be a little bit smaller, but it just doesn't fit the car, the characteristics of the car. And as such, I'm going to fix that today. So we are going to install an aftermarket steering wheel on our project car, this 2019 Mazda Miata MX-5 RF. So if you're interested in finding out how to change the steering wheel, regardless of brand, then stay tuned. Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications, and like and comment. This is not an install that you should take lightly. If at all you feel uncomfortable with this install, please don't do it yourself. You are going to be playing with the airbag, and as such, there are some inherent dangers involved. You are going to be altering your steering wheel, and of course, you screw that up on any car and that could be disastrous. With that said, I do believe someone who is willing to learn, follow the instructions, take their time, is cautious in the approach, can perform this install themselves. But again, if you're not comfortable, please bring it to a professional. By the way, I am not a professional. So step number one would be to remove the negative battery terminal with a 10mm socket wrench. So after removing the negative battery terminal, which you can see here, and getting that out of the way, make sure it doesn't touch any metals. We're going to open up the fuse box, which I've already done. And in checking with the owner's manual, we're going to find which fuse is for the airbag. And in the book, it does show fuse 11 is for the airbag, which is the second row of fuses, third one down. And we're going to remove that, put that in a safe place. Before we start removing the OEM steering wheel, make sure that the steering wheel is centered, that the tires are centered nicely so that everything's aligned perfectly for when you remove the old one and we put the new aftermarket steering wheel in. So the next step is to remove the airbag module itself. So it's the center circular piece right here. To do so, you are going to use a screwdriver of sorts. Lucky for me, actually the steering wheel that I bought came with one. 3 holes, one on either side and one in the middle piece here, that you push in, and there are 3 springs you need to push in order to have the module itself pop out. The airbag is now fully released. Please be careful, it's still attached with some electrical connections. As you can see in the back here, there is an orange tab, a yellow tab, and a ground tab. And we are going to remove those 3 connections and then safely put our airbag to the side. So to do that, these black pieces need to pop out. They are locking these connectors in place. We'll pop them out, we'll remove those, we'll remove the ground, and we'll be on to our next step. So using a small flathead screwdriver, I pulled out the black center pieces that are locking the connectors in place. Make sure you pull them, they can pull all the way out, don't lose those. But pull them all as far as you can. Actually, I'm gonna take mine out just so I don't lose them, and then we'll pull out the connectors themselves. So as you can see, they took a little bit of effort. They weren't easily coming out by hand. Just pried them out a little bit with the flathead screwdriver. And then we'll remove the negative. There we go. And here is your airbag module. So let me just show you the push pins on the back side. So when we were trying to release the airbag, these are what we were pushing against. This was coming through the hole and pushing on these. And we have our nut, which is a 21 millimeter that we're going to remove. And before we do that though, I am going to apply some electrical tape on the steering here, and I am just going to tag it to the side of the column as well as up here on the chrome trim. By doing that, I'm going to line it up so that when we install our new wheel, I'll be able to make sure that the electrical tape actually lines up. Then I'm going to go get our socket wrench, and we are going to break free our nut, and we'll go from there. Like I said, this is a 21 millimeter nut. Took a little bit to break loose, but not too bad. Here it is. This is the back side. This top part is the front side, so it goes in like that. I did get a steering wheel remover kit from my local auto parts store. At least where I am, there are plenty of stores like AutoZone and O'Reilly's that offer free, well, I mean, you put down a deposit and then you get your money back, but free rental, which is great. So I did pick one up. Let's see if I actually need it. Let's see if this pops out. I have heard some people say you don't need it, it'll pop out. I think it's going to be situational. I do believe that it will all depend on your steering wheel. Of course, I wanted to get it just in case I needed it, so I wouldn't be stuck without it. So let's see if this pops right off. So I was lucky. Let's just show you what I did. So I just braced the steering wheel with my knees, put my hands at the 2 and the 10, my other hand's holding the camera here, but and then just firmly pulled towards me. Cautious not to use too much pressure. We don't want the steering wheel flying off and hitting you in the face, but give it a little bit more, give it a little bit of pressure. I didn't want to have uneven pressure and bend anything within here, but nonetheless, it didn't take a lot of effort. I was able to pull this loose. So did not need a steering wheel puller. Glad I have it though, but for some of you, you may need it. Before you do try to remove the wheel, just make sure you remove this white wire clip here that is being held in place. As you can see, we'll disconnect that and then we'll take it to a safe place and we'll start removing the trim pieces and transfer that over to our new steering wheel. The next step for those of you who have purchased an aftermarket steering wheel that is a direct fit replacement would be to remove the various trim components from your OEM wheel. So that is 3 different components here. The first of the 3 that we'll have to remove in no particular order would be the center chrome ring. Then we have the 2 pieces for the side controls. And then if you look at the back here, we have the back plastic housing. All of these are attached with various clips and pins, which for the most part are delicate, and I would very much caution you to take your time when you're removing each piece. Don't rush this. Apply uniform pressure throughout. If you are using a screwdriver or any other tool to pry these off, it might be a good idea to wrap the tip of that tool in something a little softer so that you don't scratch up the trim pieces itself. For me, I do have a tool that I took out of my trim and molding removal kit. So I have a whole kit with various tools of various sizes, and I can leave a link in the description below. I also have my small flathead screwdriver that I'll use too. So let's get started. For this chrome piece, there's this piece right here and the other one on the other side that you need to convince this chrome trim piece to disconnect or remove itself from. And then there's two down here. This one I've already disconnected, already been able to pull it. Just keep applying uniform pressure all throughout. I've slowly used this just to pry, being very careful not to scratch. Down here, I could feel it before it finally released. I could feel it finally releasing itself. So this part's done. I'm going to use the trim removal piece to finagle this last part of it out here. There it goes. We got piece number one off. So I'm going to remove the back plastic piece next. That bottom part popped off nicely, kind of like the front chrome trim ring did. Just apply even pressure and I was able to pop that off. Let's go to one of the sides here. Ah, there she goes. All right, so a little force there. There we go. All right, got the black back piece off. What does that mean? We just have the side controls left to remove. Before I do that though, I'm going to release this wiring harness by flipping this over. You have these two pins right here, and we're going to push those in and pop these out. So let's do that. There's the other. Now we have our last pieces to remove, which would be the two side controls. After I release these two, can you see them, pins holding in the electrical wires. These should pop off. Let's see how easy it is. Again, use my trim removal tool. These side pieces, I've just taken my time using the trim removal tool. This has been very helpful. I've not used the flathead screwdriver. I really think if I did, I'd be scratching this up a lot. So definitely a tip. If you don't have one of these, consider getting them. They're not very expensive. And like I said, I'll leave a link in the description below. But what I've been doing is prying at the sides. And let's see if you can see that here. Down here, you have a pin that I finally was able to get out. Let's see if I can do that on the other side as well. And there you go. Here's your pins, 1, 2, 3, all fitting within 1, 2, 3. I think this is the biggest one, so probably just need to work on that. So from a perspective, here's your steering wheel. Flip that around again. This was probably the most difficult. Once I was able to release that, the other ones came off. So let's see if I can do the same on this other side here. There it goes. And there it is, right? Pops off. Let's see. It's a little harder on this side just because your telephone controls are down here and it's all plastic, and to grip this and really apply pressure, I feel like I'm going to break it. So hopefully I don't. Probably should have said anything till afterwards, but let's just see if I can pry out the rest here. There we are. So we have our controls. So there she is. I did choose the Ken style steering wheel. A couple reasons for this. First, I'd like to actually mention that based on my last video on this topic of steering wheels, there's a bunch to choose from, and for the most part, all of them looked promising. The reason why I chose Ken style was that it was on the cheaper side, so they can definitely run more expensive. Also, the Ken style is all black, at least the one that I got. I was keeping it simple. You know, I think it looks great. I've seen some very positive reviews. I also, another reason why I bought the Ken style was I also thought that it would arrive much sooner than some of the others. So Guardian Designs typically takes, I think it's 4 to 6 weeks to arrive. Unfortunately for me, this was coming directly from Japan, and I think given the situation we're in with COVID-19, it actually took 5 weeks for me to receive this. The Ken style steering wheel in leather. We have perforated leather on the sides. It is a little bit thicker. More importantly for me, it has some nice contouring for the thumb positions, both up top at the 10 and the 2, so your thumbs naturally fall up here, but also down here more at the 9 and 3, which is really nice. They also adds a thicker portion right here for those of you who routinely drive with your hands down here. Not the safest, but I admit that I am one of those individuals at times. So I like the fact that it has that contour. Your pinky falls down here. We have the flat bottom. We have multiple contours for your thumbs. This looks really good. And let me grab the OEM steering wheel and we can do a quick comparison. And here we have the OEM ND Mazda Miata steering wheel on the left. And on the right, we have an aftermarket steering wheel, the Ken style steering wheel. One of the things I disliked the most about the OEM was the uniform thickness and the fact that it is relatively thin. Just didn't feel right in the hands. And as you see here with the Ken style and plenty of other aftermarket steering wheels, it's thicker. I like the perforated leather on the sides. We have the contouring for the thumbs. We have a flat bottom. But I am excited, so let's stop staring at it and let's get this on the car. So our next step is now transferring all of the OEM pieces to our Ken style steering wheel. The back plate fit in nicely, everything lined up and snapped right into place. So we have our new Ken style steering wheel. We're going to attach it to the steering column. And first thing is to thread your connectors through. Ooh, that feels nice. All right, I am gonna line up this tape. Make sure that you get the 2 pins on either side through these holes. And the center piece has a whole bunch of little splines, so you can pull it out, readjust it for fine-tune adjustments. And we're gonna do that now. So take it out. This center piece does move around, so that's independent. What you're trying to do is just make sure you get the right spline line up. I'm glad I added this tape. It makes it a lot easier to make sure that I have this centered. And this is in there without the nut attached, but as you can see from the top here, this black electrical tape that I put up here to line things up is spot on to me. I mean, that looks perfect. So let's grab the nut. And again, let's make sure that the flat part of the nut goes in this way. The recommended torque specs for this nut is between 30 to 36 foot-pounds. Just be careful, I Don't want to drag the torque wrench over my new leather steering wheel. There we go. And now I am going to reattach our connector here. Now we're going to reattach our airbag. Remember, we have 3 attachments. We have our yellow, pretty easy. Yellow goes into yellow. Orange connector goes into the orange connector. Then we have the ground that slides right into the top here. And we don't want to forget the black plastic tabs that will lock these connectors in place that go right through the center. Now, on the back here, remember, we had to push these pins out of the way to release from these 3 areas, 3 spots here, which you'll see are right here. So we want to make sure we line that up just right. Oh, there goes one. There it goes. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Look at this. Wow. That's strange how excited I am. Let's remove it. So there you have it. I'm really excited, really happy with the outcome. I think the process itself wasn't overly complex. It's not difficult. I would just highly recommend, again, just taking your time when you're removing and reinstalling the trim pieces, so the controls, the chrome bezel, and the back black plastic piece. Just take your time. You don't want to scratch those up or damage them. I am very happy with the Ken style, or at least initially. The look and feel is definitely much higher quality. I love all the contouring, the thickness, the thumb contours, and I can't wait to drive it. But before I do, just a reminder, the last step is to reconnect the fuse, put the fuse back in for the airbag that we removed, reconnect the negative battery terminal, start her up, make sure everything's working, and then go take it out for a test drive, which is exactly what I'm going to do now.